everybody, Sven Diesel here. We're going to be tying up the heavy hitter sow bug. It's called that because it looks like a sow bug, but you got 6 tungsten beads, so it's heavy. We're going to use a stealth hook. This is a C10. I'm going to fish this sow bug a little bit larger than I would, more like a scud, and we're going to use some red wax thread. This is an 8/0 by Semperfli. I'm trying to match the colors of the sow bugs in my local water with the best I can with what I had tonight. I was driving around today in my work van and had this idea, and I thought I'm gonna bust this out and figure out how to do it, and here it is. So start your thread, cut it out, and what we're going to do next is I'm going to take some 3X tippet. This is just leftover stuff. You could use a bunch of different product for this, but I just wanted to use something a little heavier than 6X or 7X, and I'll go ahead and just tie this in, and then I'm going to use this like I would my tag end and work my way down the shank of this hook with touching wraps, because we want to cover up this shank and also give it a red I guess underbody, so when it gets wet some of that red might show through. That's been kind of a trick with a lot of my sow bugs, is having red or pink or black. But we'll go ahead and come all the way down the bend like I would a normal sow bug, and then we'll come up just a little bit so my thread doesn't slip off, and to also build a little bit of bulk here at the back. Now for this I've got some ostrich here, and this is just a tan, the closest thing I had to what I'm going for, but you know, it comes in a bunch of different colors. I've got 3 fibers, 3 because of the length of the shank here. You know, if you're tying it smaller, you'd only need 2, but I'll go ahead and tie in these buttons just right here near the rear and tie it back all the way to where I ended with the power flex or tippet, and then I'll go ahead and cover up most of that. And on my way up to the eye, watch that point, on the way up to the eye, what I'm going to do is just make sure I'm trying to just build a nice thread base, and you know, we don't need to worry about bulk or anything, but just make sure it's covered and got a good red hue to it. And like I said, if you're doing it with black, you don't need to do as many because the hook's black, or if you're doing it with pink, you'd need to do the same thing. And then we'll just end with our thread up here at the eye. Now for this I'm using tungsten beads, and you see here I've got a light pink one, and it's a shoot, I take them out of the packages. I think this is 3/32. I'm not sure, just size it to fit. I'm going to use 2 of those, and then I'm going to step it up a little bit to create the hump a little bit better, and so I think this one is an 1/8, and I'll go ahead and tie it. And I'm tying these with the small hole going back towards the rear of the hook, and now I'm going to flip direction and have the hole go towards the front, just to create uniformity, and I think it looks better. So I'm just going to go ahead and thread all these on. I really stink at doing this, especially on the pressure of doing this for a video, but I might have left this cut too much tippet out, but there we go. We got all 6 tungsten beads, and if you're doing a smaller hook, you could do 5 or 4, but I would recommend, you know, trying to get 5 or 6 on there, just because of what it does and the segmentation it creates. And so I'm going to go ahead and wrap my thread back. I didn't pull the tippet super tight. I left it a little bit loose so that I could go ahead and wrap my thread back through all these to help secure it, strengthen it, and also make my life easier when I'm wrapping the ostrich up through this. But we'll just work our way up and down, and you won't see this, but it also helps give a little bit more reddish hue that might see through. And then I'll go ahead and just double back over my tippet just a little bit, and this also helps build a head. So tie that off, and we'll go ahead and snip it out, leaving our thread just right behind the eye. Now ostrich, as you know, is super breakable, and so we're going to be super careful not to hook that hook point, but I'll go do it 1 wrap behind, and then I'll start my way up by just ribbing up through the gap in the tungsten beads, and I'm just going to do 1 wrap here, and then I'll do 1 wrap here, And then as I get here in the middle, I've got more underbody I'm trying to cover, so I'll kind of pull those fibers to the left, and then as I go through a second time, I'll pull them to the right. And I'll do the same here. I'm kind of pulling them back into the left, and then pulling the second wrap up into the right, just to give a little bit more coverage on the underbody. And this is going to ride, I'd assume, with the tungsten beads down. And then as you get up here towards the eye, we don't have a lot of feather left or fiber left. I'm going to go ahead and put my hackle pliers on, and got to be ultra careful because I'm grabbing it by the tips, and I missed one, but we'll secure it with these other two. And yeah, see, it breaks, but luckily we wrapped it pretty snug through those tungsten beads. So I'm just going to go ahead and use my fingers and salvage this one. There's a good little trick in case yours break. I wanted to show you what to do if they break. So there we go, and I'm just going to wrap over those 3 fiber tips, and then under, and then over one more time, and then under. And then to kind of clean up the eye, I don't wrap directly over, I kind of wrap in at an angle so the thread swoops the eye and gets those fibers back. And then we'll go ahead and do a whip finish and build up a little bit of a head, making sure there's no fibers going over that eye. Makes our life easier later on. And we'll just go ahead and get our thread out, snip it out, and we'll cut those fibers tips. And now this will save our life and make it easier for the next step. I'm just going to take my scissors, and without doling them, I'm not cutting the tungsten bead, but I'm just cutting the fibers that are a little too long, that are sticking out between the beads. And all I'm doing is setting my scissors flush up against it. The edges of the blades are not touching, but I'm just simply snipping as I work my way over those tungsten beads, which are rounded edges. So you don't need to worry about dulling your scissors unless you're, I don't know, doing something way wrong. And we'll go ahead and just get that all trimmed up. Like I said, this is just to make our next step, our life, a little bit easier. Unless you're really, really good at keeping fibers out of resins, then you don't need to do this step. But I don't really know anybody there might be a few individuals out there with superhuman powers. But there we go. That's trimmed up. That's nice. And now we're going to go ahead and use some of this Semperfli No Tack. This is a UV resin. It's I don't know, a medium viscosity, and I'm just going to take my time with this. I'm going to start in the middle and make sure that I get a little bit over each edge, and then I'm going to basically lay down a layer next to it and just keep laying down layers as I get down towards the side of these tungsten beads, right when you start to get into the fibers, and that's when I stop going down, because resin and these fibers just are a nightmare. And once you get some stuck in there, then you're gonna have fun. But make sure you get some around the end, and we're basically strengthening these beads, but also at the same time creating that shape and profile that we want. And I'm just gonna add a little bit more on the top. So we've got quite a bit of resin on here, and just make sure everything's covered. You can always go back and do a second coat if you'd like, but I'm just trying to get this with one coat. And then make sure my tail end or butt end is good, and that my head is good, that I've got that, nice and good. And then I'm going to make sure I like it. That looks good. And then I'm going to basically set it upside down so that resin isn't going into the fibers but coming off of it a little bit to create kind of a halo effect, and then I'll go ahead and cure it. Now, because we have so much resin on there, I'm going to cure it a little longer than the 5 to 10 seconds. I want to make sure it's got a good cure, and so I'll probably hit it for 15 or 20. There's no science behind that. Maybe there is, I don't know, but I'm not a resin expert. I just think a little bit longer is good. But there we go. That is a heavy sow bug. Could be considered a scud. It's got a nice effect to it. The shell back with the grooves. I'm really happy about this. We've got some red underbody that's going to show through. Color combinations are endless. Just find the tungsten, find the ostrich, and fish it.